He saved the enemy's child. And now the alien queen demands him. Captain Elias Rowan crouched in the shattered ruins of Colony Theta 9, his boots sinking into ash and debris. Smoke twisted in thick black ribbons across the sky, carrying the acrid scent of burned metal and scorched earth. Explosions still echoed in the distance, though the main Khepri forces had retreated. The humans who remained moved like ghosts among the ruins, collecting survivors and tending to the injured. Rowan wiped the sweat and soot from his brow and scanned the landscape, searching for anything that might move. His squad had already left, ferrying civilians to the waiting evacuation ships. Rowan lingered, drawn to a strange, flickering light coming from a jagged pile of debris. Instinct and curiosity pushed him forward. As he climbed over twisted metal and crumbled concrete, he realized the light was not natural. It pulsed, small and weak like a heartbeat. Rowan knelt beside it and gasped. A small, alien form was trapped beneath the wreckage. Its body was delicate, almost translucent, with glowing veins that pulsed faintly. It looked nothing like the soldiers he had fought against. Its large, luminescent eyes blinked slowly as it struggled to breathe. Rowan recognized the insignia on the remnants of the transport. It was Khepri, but this was not a warrior. This was a child. Rowan's first instinct was to run. The orders were clear: no survivors, no prisoners. Khepri were ruthless, and aiding one could mean death. But as he watched the larval creature wheeze and lift its tiny limbs, something inside him rebelled. He could not abandon it. He could not allow death where he could give life. Rowan gritted his teeth and began to lift the debris, careful not to crush the fragile form beneath. It was heavy, jagged metal pressing against his hands. Pain lanced through his palms, but he ignored it. At last, the alien child was free, shivering and weak. Rowan tore a strip of his uniform and wrapped it gently around the fragile body. He murmured words of comfort, though he knew the creature could not understand. Yet the act itself felt right. Finding shelter in the remnants of a half-collapsed building, Rowan worked quickly. The child's breathing was shallow and erratic. Rowan tore open his medkit, using what he could: antiseptic bandages, a small injector of nutrient gel. He treated burns, stabilized injuries, and whispered reassurances. Hours passed, though he did not notice them. Outside, distant Khepri patrols moved in random sweeps, searching for survivors and human resistance alike. Rowan stayed silent, holding the creature close and hoping the alien senses did not betray him. For the first time, he allowed himself a thought he had long suppressed during the war. This was not an enemy. This was a life, and it was fragile, too fragile to be abandoned. Night fell, and with it came a strange quiet. Rowan wrapped the larval child in more layers, keeping it close to his chest for warmth. He pondered his next move. There was no way he could keep the creature on the evacuation ships. They were overcrowded, and suspicion ran high. If anyone discovered the child, Rowan would be executed on the spot. Yet leaving it here was no better. It would die alone. A plan formed in his mind. He would place the child in a small, concealed escape pod, a lifeboat designed for emergency evacuation. The pod could drift in space until the Khepri recovered it. It would be safer there than anywhere on the planet. Rowan prepared the pod, checking oxygen levels, temperature, and life support. He whispered to the alien child, explaining in the simplest words he could manage that it would be safe soon. With trembling hands, he placed the creature inside. The child lifted its glowing eyes to him, and Rowan felt a pang of something he had not experienced since the war began: hope. He activated the pod's automated launch sequence, and the small vessel floated upward, disappearing into the night sky, a tiny beacon of life among the wreckage. Rowan stayed behind, moving silently through the ruins as dawn broke. He avoided the main evacuation corridors, taking a longer path back to the human command center. Each step felt heavier than the last. He had defied orders, broken every rule, and yet the memory of the glowing eyes pressed on his conscience. The act of mercy had changed something inside him, something that could not be undone. When he reached the command center, his squad leader, Captain Lena Morna, was waiting. Her eyes widened as she saw him approach, alone and exhausted. "Where's the child?" she asked sharply. Rowan shook his head. "Safe," he said simply. "I sent it off. It'll survive." Morno's face paled. You disobeyed direct orders," she hissed. "Do you understand what this could mean?" "I do," Rowan said quietly, "but it was alive. I couldn't leave it to die." Morno opened her mouth to argue further, but before she could speak, the room fell silent. A strange sound filled the air, not human, not mechanical. A single message, transmitted directly to the command center's systems, appeared on every screen. It was in a language no human had seen before, but the meaning was clear. Captain Rowan, we know what you have done. The Queen demands your presence. No one spoke for a long moment. Rowan felt the weight of the words pressed down on him. The Khepri Queen, the distant, mythic ruler of a hive civilization that spanned multiple star systems, had noticed him, not just noticed, but demanded. "Is this a threat?" one of the officers asked nervously. "I don't know," Rowan said, "but it's real and they want me." The room erupted into argument. Some wanted to refuse to hide him, to continue the war without surrendering a single soldier. Others warned that defying the Queen would mean the annihilation of human colonies. Rowan listened, but his decision had already been made. "I will go," he said finally. "If it stops more lives from being lost, I will go." Morno's eyes filled with fear. "You could never come back from this," she said. "I know," he replied. "But maybe it will change something, for them, for us." Preparations began for Rowan's journey. He was given a small vessel capable of traveling through Khepri-controlled space. Weapons were stripped to a minimum. This was not a mission of combat, but of survival and negotiation. He watched the colonies pass beneath him as he entered the stars, each light a reminder of why he had made his choice. As he moved further from human space, Rowan thought of the larval child drifting in the escape pod. He hoped it survived, hoped that somehow his act of mercy had made a difference. Deep inside, he felt a strange certainty. This journey would not be the end, but the beginning of something much larger than himself. The stars stretched infinitely before him, black and unbroken. And somewhere in the heart of the Khepri hive, a queen waited. Rowan exhaled, gripping the controls of his ship. He had no plan, no guarantees, and no allies. Yet for the first time in months, he felt alive, not as a soldier, but as a human. The first part of his story was ending. The second, the confrontation with the alien queen herself, was yet Captain Elias Rowan drifted through the endless black of space, the small vessel carrying him like a fragile speck. Stars stretched in every direction, cold and distant, but ahead lay the heart of the Khepri dominion where the queen ruled. The message from the Khepri had been clear. The queen demanded his presence. No negotiators, no intermediaries, Rowan alone. He gripped the controls, his knuckles white, and took a deep breath. He had survived battles, explosions, and betrayals, but this was different. He was walking into the unknown, not as a soldier, but as a human who had chosen mercy. As he approached the massive Khepri station orbiting a gas giant, the scale of the alien civilization became clear. The station was enormous, a living structure that seemed to pulse with energy. Its surface glimmered with strange bioluminescent patterns, like veins of light running through metal and organic material. The ship's sensors could barely interpret its signals. Rowan felt a chill, knowing that whatever awaited him inside was not human, and yet he reminded himself that he had survived worse odds. Docking procedures were automated. The hatch opened with a soft hiss, and Rowan stepped into the station. The air was thick and humid, scented faintly of something floral yet metallic. The corridors were vast, carved with organic curves and glowing nodes of light that seemed to respond to his presence. He was alone, yet he felt watched. Every step echoed in the vastness. Finally, he reached a large chamber, at the center of which floated a massive form. The Queen, she was unlike anything he had imagined. Towering with multiple limbs and iridescent wings folded around her like a cloak, her eyes glowed with intelligence that seemed to pierce his very thoughts. Rowan bowed instinctively, though he knew this gesture had no meaning to her species. "You are Captain Elias Rowan," the Queen said. Her voice was not sound as humans knew it. It was a resonance in his mind, a gentle, insistent presence that seemed to weigh his thoughts. "You saved what should have died. You acted against your kind for the life of mine. Why?" Rowan swallowed hard. He had expected this question, but the weight of it was heavier than he imagined. "Because it was alive," he said simply. "Because it deserved a chance. We humans, sometimes we do the wrong things. Sometimes we also choose right. I chose right." The Queen regarded him silently, her multiple eyes blinking in patterns that seemed like a code. "Mercy is foreign to us. It is weakness in your kind. Why should I not destroy you for disobedience?" "Because killing me won't bring the child back," Rowan replied. "It won't fix anything, but I can help you understand something about humans, something no Khepri knows." The queen leaned forward, her immense form filling the chamber. You will speak, human, convince me. Rowan's heart pounded, but he focused on the truth. Humans are violent. We fight, we kill, we conquer. But we are not only that. We are also capable of choices, small, difficult choices, acts of mercy, acts of courage, acts of hope. I could have left the child to die. I didn't. That is who I am. That is who humanity can be. The queen's eyes seemed to ripple, processing. She extended a limb, touching the wall near Rowan, and suddenly the chamber shifted. Around him, illusions formed, scenes of human history. Wars, massacres, revolutions, inventions, art, and acts of kindness flashed before his eyes. He saw humans saving others at great risk, humans creating beauty and destruction, humans making choices that defied logic. You speak of paradoxes, the queen said. You are dangerous, human, unpredictable. Your species kills yet protects, destroys yet creates. Why should I not consider you a threat to all Khepri? Rowan thought carefully. Because that unpredictability is what allows change. We can grow, learn, and act beyond instinct. That is our strength, not our weakness. You value logic, order, efficiency. We value possibility. And sometimes possibility is stronger than power. The queen studied him in silence. Then she did something unexpected. She moved closer to him, lowering her massive form so that she seemed almost human in scale. If you are so committed to life, then you will be tested. You will face choices, not in battle but in morality. You will decide the fate of others without certainty, without rules. You will show if mercy is real or merely illusion. Rowan nodded. He had faced countless battles, but this test of morality, was something new. He was not armed with weapons, but with his understanding of choice. The first scenario appeared around him, projected like a hologram of light and shadow. Human colonists were trapped on a planet scheduled for Khepri assimilation. There were not enough ships to save everyone. Rowan had to decide who lived and who stayed behind. He could panic, he could act selfishly, or he could try to maximize life. He closed his eyes, breathed, and chose a path that risked his safety but preserved the most life. The illusions vanished. Another scenario appeared. Khepri soldiers captured by humans were to be executed in retaliation. Rowan's decision, uphold revenge or find a path that preserved both human and alien lives. He hesitated, then chose mercy, releasing prisoners despite the risk. Hours passed, each scenario more complex than the last. Rowan's choices were guided by instinct, ethics, and hope. He made mistakes, yes, but he always sought life over death, compassion over convenience. The queen observed every decision, every hesitation, every act of courage. Finally, after what felt like days, the chamber dissolved, leaving Rowan standing in the original space. The queen hovered before him, silent. Then she spoke, her resonance calm but commanding. You have passed the test, Elias Rowan. Your choices have altered the perception of humans within the Khepri consciousness. You have proven that your species is not solely defined by destruction, but by potential. You have shown mercy. You have shown courage. You have shown humanity. Rowan's chest heaved. He had survived battles, fire, and war, but nothing had prepared him for this acknowledgement. Does this mean the war will end? He asked cautiously. The queen extended her limb, touching the controls of the chamber. Across the galaxy, transmissions began. The conflict shall pause. Human colonies will remain. Khepri forces will withdraw from occupied worlds, not because of surrender, but because mercy has value, even in logic. Rowan felt relief, but also a strange sense of responsibility. The queen had not only spared him, she had spared countless lives because of one human choice. The weight of that truth settled on him, heavy but profound. You are free to return, the queen said. But remember this, your choices echo, your species is dangerous and necessary. Remember what you have shown me and carry it with you. Rowan bowed again, a gesture of respect and gratitude. He left the chamber, returning to his vessel. As he entered human space, he received reports that the war had ended. Colonies were intact, lives saved, and the Khepri fleets had pulled back, not in defeat, but in cautious acknowledgement of humanity's unpredictable nature. Rowan thought of the larval child he had saved. Somewhere in the drifting escape pod, life continued. That small act of mercy had started a chain reaction that changed the course of the war. A single human choice had altered the balance of an entire galaxy. As the stars passed by his ship, Rowan realized that this was not the end of his journey, but the beginning of a new era. One in which humans were no longer just fighters, but agents of change, capable of defying expectation and reshaping destiny. And deep inside, he felt a quiet pride. He had acted not out of strategy, not out of orders, but out of the simple, enduring truth of being human. To choose life, to choose hope, to choose compassion, even when the universe expected otherwise. Rowan smiled faintly. Humanity had survived, not because of its weapons or numbers, but because one man chose mercy. And in that choice, the galaxy had changed forever. Captain Elias Rowan returned to human space as a changed man. The stars no longer felt like distant lights, but as markers of infinite possibility. The memory of the Khepri Queen, her immense presence and thoughtful judgment, haunted his mind. He had survived, yes, but survival alone no longer defined him. He was now a messenger, a witness to what mercy and human choice could accomplish even in a universe that often rewarded only power and logic. Upon arrival, Rowan was met with cautious curiosity. Human command expected a hero, a warlord, or even a prisoner, but he carried none of those titles. He brought only stories and warnings of mercy and choice, of a civilization unlike any humans had encountered. Leaders crowded around him, questioning his every word. Could a single human truly influence the will of an entire alien empire? Could one act of mercy reshape the course of interstellar war? Rowan simply nodded, explaining with calm precision what had occurred. "It is not about victory," he said. "It is about choice. Every action we take carries meaning beyond our immediate understanding. The Khepri did not expect mercy. They do not understand it, and that is why it has power." Rowan's words spread quickly. Scientists, soldiers, and ordinary civilians listened with awe and disbelief. For centuries, humans had measured progress through dominance, conquest, and survival. Now they saw that a single act, born from compassion, could alter history. Rowan was invited to speak at councils, military forums, and academic conferences. His message was simple yet revolutionary. Humanity was defined not only by its strength, but by its ability to choose differently. Yet Rowan knew his work was not finished. He could not simply return to a quiet life, for the galaxy itself had changed. Reports began to filter in from distant colonies. Khepri patrols moved cautiously, often avoiding conflict. Some colonies even received assistance from alien scouts, facilitating reconstruction and rescue. The child he had saved, the larval Khepri, was thriving. Rowan learned this through a secure communication established by the Queen herself. The child, now larger and more capable of understanding, had become a symbol of new possibilities. It was a living proof that even enemies could become allies if given the chance. Rowan felt a quiet pride, though he also understood the weight of responsibility. He had altered the fate of countless beings with a single choice, and the implications were still unfolding. Humanity began to change in subtle ways. Military leaders reconsidered strategies, valuing diplomacy and understanding alongside traditional tactics. Scientists explored new methods of cooperation with alien species, inspired by Rowan's example. Citizens debated ethics, morality, and the potential of choices beyond survival. And throughout it all, Rowan quietly observed, offering guidance only when necessary, letting humanity learn from the ripple he had begun. One day, Rowan was called to a high council meeting. The room was vast, filled with representatives from human colonies across the galaxy. Even in this age of technology and expansion, the room retained a solemn weight. Leaders awaited his counsel. Rowan stepped forward, feeling the collective gaze of humanity upon him. "The galaxy has changed," he began. "Not because of weapons, not because of power, but because of understanding. We have learned that compassion can be a force stronger than fear. We have learned that mercy can shape destinies. And we must carry this forward not as an anomaly, but as a principle." The leaders listened intently. Some were skeptical, bound by tradition and the harsh realities of interstellar life. Others nodded, feeling the truth of Rowan's words in their hearts. Slowly, a shift began. Policies were reconsidered. Colonies that had lived in fear of alien retaliation began to rebuild with collaboration and foresight. Humanity had gained something more valuable than conquest. It had gained influence through principle. But Rowan's journey was not without challenges. Not all humans understood the value of mercy. Some questioned his actions, labeling them reckless. Others feared the Khepri, thinking that any act of compassion would invite retaliation. Rowan faced criticism, doubt, and resistance at every step. Yet he remained steadfast, knowing that change required patience, courage, and repeated choices. Each time he demonstrated understanding and reason, humanity learned anew. As months passed, Rowan's connection with the Khepri deepened. Through secure channels, he communicated with the Queen, discussing philosophy, strategy, and ethics. Their conversations were a bridge between species, a rare exchange of ideas across a vast divide. Rowan learned more about the Khepri than any human had known before. Their society, their reasoning, and even their capacity for unexpected empathy. In turn, the Queen gained insight into the human spirit, the stubborn, unpredictable, and resilient nature that defined their survival. The galaxy, once defined by war and fear, began to take on a new character. Conflicts did not disappear entirely, but negotiation and diplomacy became as vital as strategy and arms. Humans and Khepri slowly found ways to cooperate, sharing knowledge, resources, and exploration efforts. Rowan observed with quiet satisfaction. One act of mercy had begun a movement that neither species could have anticipated. Yet amid the progress, Rowan felt a personal tug of responsibility. The child he had saved was growing rapidly, developing intelligence and awareness. Rowan wondered how the being would perceive him, how it would remember the kindness that had altered its life. When he finally met the child again, now fully aware and curious, Rowan felt a profound connection that transcended species and war. "You saved me," the child said softly, its voice resonating not with fear but with recognition. "You chose life when it was easiest to choose death. Why?" Rowan smiled gently. "Because life is worth saving even when it is hard, even when it is inconvenient. You are proof of that choice, and proof that even enemies can become allies when we dare to care." The child's eyes glowed brighter, a mixture of understanding and gratitude. Rowan realized that this was more than a personal triumph. It was a symbol, a living testament to what humans could achieve when they acted beyond instinct, when they embraced the full spectrum of their choices. As the years passed, Rowan continued to travel between colonies and Khepri systems, mediating disputes, fostering understanding, and teaching the value of compassion. Humanity grew, not just in numbers or technology, but in wisdom and influence. The galaxy watched, learning that strength could take many forms, sometimes in weapons, sometimes in diplomacy, but always in the courage to choose mercy. One quiet night, as Rowan gazed at the stars from the bridge of his ship, he reflected on the journey. From the moment he had lifted that fragile alien child from the wreckage of Colony Theta 9, to the moments of moral tests with the Queen, to the subtle shifts in human and Khepri behavior across countless worlds, one truth had become clear. A single choice, made with courage and compassion, could echo across the universe. Rowan smiled faintly. Humanity had survived countless trials, yet it was not brute strength alone that had carried them forward. It was hope, mercy, and the determination to act rightly even when consequences were uncertain. And in that realization, he found not only pride but a sense of peace. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges still, but Rowan knew that as long as humans chose courage over fear, hope over despair, and mercy over blind logic, there was no limit to what they could achieve. And somewhere far beyond the stars, the child he had saved thrived, a reminder of what one human act could accomplish. Captain Elias Rowan leaned back in his chair, letting the hum of the ship and the distant glow of alien worlds soothe him. He had begun as a soldier, acting out of instinct and duty. But he had become something more, a witness, a bridge, a proof that humanity's greatest power was the ability to choose. And in that choice, the universe itself had begun to change. Years had passed since Captain Elias Rowan's first encounter with the Khepri Queen. Humanity had changed, and the galaxy had taken notice. Once isolated colonies now communicated freely, sharing resources and technology. Wars had decreased, not entirely vanished, but replaced by cautious alliances and negotiations. Rowan traveled constantly, bridging gaps between human settlements and Khepri sectors, mediating disputes, and teaching the lessons he had learned. That one act of compassion could alter destinies. But the galaxy was never truly quiet. One morning, Rowan received a message from a remote human colony on the edge of explored space. The transmission was urgent, marked by both fear and hope. A strange phenomenon had appeared near their system, a cluster of unstable energy fields, warping space and threatening to engulf the planet. Colonists reported unusual signals, intelligent but not immediately recognizable. The situation was dangerous, but potentially an opportunity to demonstrate the continued power of human ingenuity. Rowan did not hesitate. He gathered a team of engineers, scientists, and diplomats, all trained to operate under extreme conditions. They boarded the fastest vessel available, cutting across light years to reach the colony. As they approached, the energy cluster became visible, a swirling mass of colors, arcs of lightning, and waves of gravitational distortion. It was alive, or at least it behaved as if it were. Rowan felt a thrill of both fear and curiosity. "This is unlike anything we've seen," said Dr. Mina Torres, the lead scientist. "It's not a natural phenomenon, but not clearly artificial either. It's aware." Rowan nodded, focusing on the situation. "Whatever it is, it's threatening innocent lives. Let's find a way to protect them and, if possible, communicate. Remember what we learned: mercy and understanding can be as powerful as force." The team deployed drones and sensors, gathering data while Rowan studied the patterns of the energy field. It moved with purpose, almost as if it were testing them. Small probes were immediately disrupted, redirected, or destroyed, yet Rowan noticed subtle signals, pulses that resembled communication attempts. He realized that this anomaly was not hostile by instinct, only cautious. Rowan approached the colony's command center, where panic had begun to rise. Citizens were evacuating, but there were limited ships. He assessed the situation and made a decision. "We cannot abandon them. We need a solution that preserves life, not just moves it. Let's use the fields themselves, not fight them. Sometimes understanding the enemy is stronger than weapons." The scientists and engineers worked feverishly. Rowan oversaw every step, offering insight from his experiences with the Khepri. He instructed the team to map the energy cluster's pulses and respond in kind, effectively attempting to communicate through subtle changes in energy frequency. Hours passed. Each success was temporary. The cluster adjusted, testing them in new ways, but Rowan persisted. Finally, a breakthrough occurred. The energy field responded to a coordinated sequence of pulses, stabilizing momentarily. The colony's evacuation routes were now clear. Rowan realized that the cluster was intelligent and curious, possibly a species or life form unlike anything humans had cataloged. They had not intended harm. It had reacted defensively when it sensed panic and chaos. Rowan made a bold decision. He entered a small, shielded craft designed to transmit his personal signals directly into the energy field. Surrounded by light and crackling energy, he projected thoughts of peace, cooperation, and life preservation. It was an exercise in empathy, a test of human ability to communicate without words, through intent and purpose. Slowly, the field responded. It shifted, creating corridors of stable space that allowed colonists to move safely. Rowan's team cheered as families and civilians evacuated with minimal risk. The energy cluster did not attack. It observed, tested, and ultimately allowed safe passage. After the evacuation, Rowan remained to communicate further. Over time, he realized the cluster was not merely an environmental anomaly. It was sentient, capable of learning, and even capable of forming bonds. Using careful communication, he managed to establish a form of trust. He named the life form Luminara, after the glowing energy patterns it emitted. Luminara became a living reminder of humanity's ability to reach across divides, even with beings unlike any they had known. News of Rowan's success spread rapidly. Colonies hailed him not only as a hero, but as a symbol of human ingenuity, morality, and courage. Scholars wrote papers about his methods. Military leaders reconsidered strategies, focusing not solely on force but on understanding and empathy. And Rowan continued to travel, advising, teaching, and mediating wherever his guidance was needed. But Rowan knew the galaxy would never be free of danger. He had learned that mercy could shift the course of events, but vigilance was still essential. He began to focus on training new generations, passing on lessons from his encounters with the Khepri, the saved child, and now Luminara. Young officers and diplomats learned that strength alone could not solve the universe's problems. Understanding, patience, and morality were equally vital. During one particularly quiet moment aboard his vessel, Rowan reflected on the journey. From the ruins of Colony Theta 9 to the Queen's chambers, from the larval Khepri child to the energy being known as Luminara, he had witnessed the power of choice repeatedly. Life in the galaxy was fragile, complex, and unpredictable. But humans, capable of hope, empathy, and courage, had the power to navigate it in ways no other species could. Rowan's thoughts were interrupted by a transmission. It was from the Khepri Queen herself. "Elias Rowan," her resonance filled his mind, calm but insistent. "Your influence continues. I have observed the Luminara event. You have saved countless lives. Your species grows stronger not by conquest but by conscience. There is another challenge approaching, a test not of one life but of many. Be prepared." Rowan's heart quickened. He had faced impossible odds before, yet he welcomed the challenge. Humanity's survival, he realized, was not guaranteed by technology or numbers, but by the choices they made under pressure. "Understood," he whispered, knowing he would rise to whatever awaited. As he prepared for this new mission, Rowan reflected on the lessons he had learned. One life saved could ripple into thousands, one act of mercy could reshape civilizations, and human choice, however small it seemed, could echo across galaxies. The universe was vast, mysterious, and dangerous, but he knew that as long as humans acted with courage, compassion, and intelligence, they could face whatever came next. Rowan glanced at the stars, each one a beacon of possibility. He knew the challenges ahead would be greater, the stakes higher, yet he felt ready. Humanity had proven that it could rise above instinct, fear, and even logic itself. It could choose life when destruction seemed easier. It could choose mercy when vengeance called. And it could shape the future, not through domination, but through the simple yet extraordinary power of human choice. As the vessel soared into the unknown, Rowan felt the weight of responsibility, but also the lightness of hope. The galaxy had changed, and humanity was at the center of that change. Every act, every choice, and every moment of courage contributed to a legacy that stretched across stars and generations. And somewhere, far from the human colonies, both the Khepri child and Luminara thrived, reminders of the difference one individual could make. Rowan smiled faintly, feeling the quiet strength that comes from knowing one's actions mattered, not for glory, not for recognition, but because life itself had been preserved, nurtured, and honored. The journey continued, with new worlds to explore, new beings to understand, and new choices to make. Captain Elias Rowan had begun as a soldier, but he had become something far greater, a bridge between species, a witness to mercy, and a living testament to what humanity could achieve when it embraced its full potential. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, but Rowan was no longer daunted by their distance or mystery. He knew that no matter the challenge, humans would endure, adapt, and inspire. And with every act of courage, every moment of compassion, the universe would remember the enduring strength of the human spirit. The galaxy was vast, the dangers unending, yet one truth remained. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its fleets or armies, but its heart, its mind, and the power to choose. Captain Elias Rowan tightened his grip on the controls, ready for the unknown. And with a deep breath, he propelled his vessel forward into new challenges, new discoveries, and a future that awaited only those brave enough to shape it.